Hello everyone, how's it going? This is Paul from Flutter. I'm very excited to be here again. I'm very sorry that I left all of you guys on the way while doing this. I had a few challenge and that I was able to fix, and I'm back again. So let's get this going. And as you can see, our design board, that we are still on the authentication, and today we are going to be through with the authentication and move on to the other parts of the app, which is actually the really fun part of the app. And I hope you're going to stick around. And so let's get things going. And you can see in our project here on our popspec.html file, I've added some few plugins and packages. So for me to mention them, what I've added, I'll make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. I have added more plugins and packages, which is the Firebase storage that we are going to use to store user avatars, and actually maybe if a user wants to create any store listing, we could use that and update our Firebase storage. And we are going to need the Firebase dynamic link. And yeah, dynamic links are basically to bring users to the app and direct users back to the app. So we would implement something like that in the future. And our Cloudflare store here is going to be responsible to help us store our informations on our database. So that's what the Cloudflare store is going to do. And from here you can see that I commented here state management control. So we are going to be using provider in this topic, and maybe in the future we are going to refactor this into a block pattern state management approach. And the next, we are going to use the EDAP DAT. So EDAP DAT is going to solve us the stress of trying to control our errors. Maybe we make a network request and we want to know if it's actually failed or it was successful. So we have something like a two point to listing on, either we listing on the right or we listing on the left, and see if anyone actually throw an error. So the EDAP DAT is going to help us with that. You're going to see this in action. And the get it is going to be responsible for creating singleton classes, so we can use all over our app. And yeah, we are going to use some other get it functionalities, and you're going to see all of that in the works. And here you can see our utils. We have the Intel package, which is going to be responsible to format our dates, and we have the extended package, which is going to be responsible to give us that display. We are not going to use maybe asset network image, some stuff like that. We are not going to use all of those. This is going to help us cache our image, and you're going to see how this is going to work. And we are going to use the equatable. The equatable is going to make all our classes unique. So that's what the equatable is going to do. And our shared preferences is going to store small chunk of data locally on our devices on this project. So that's what the shared preference is going to do. And the URL launcher is going to be able to launch URL from our app, any kind of URL. And the random strings is going to generate any kind of random string for us, so we could store any user generated content from the app to our database. And the file picker is going to be responsible to pick any image or videos that we might want to pick from our app. Okay, so here we are going to create our user models, and from there we are going to move into creating a user repository. And we are going to update our screens and make sure that whenever a user comes into the app and probably maybe sign up or sign in, we get some information from that user and store it on our database. So we are going to use the Cloudflare store in this. We are going to use the equatable in this, and let's move into that. And here in our models here, I'm going to create a new file called user. And here in our user repository, and here is going to be a model for user. It's going to model our user, and every user needs to have a unique ID that we are going to use that to represent that user. So that's what we are going to do now. I'm going to create a class called user and extend it with equatable. So the equatable is going to make sure that this class is unique, in the sense that we are not going to get, we can maybe get a duplicate of this, like being assigned to a variable or something like that. But when we want to check it, we will know that this class maybe is unique in a way or is not unique. So that's what we are going to check. Use the equatable to check. So it's going to check the uniqueness of the class. And the next is going to be creating the properties for this class. And we're going to create our first property called UID, and we are going to make this final, meaning that we are going to mark this class immutable. That means this class you cannot just change any properties in this, because we are actually fetching this from the database. And the first is going to be the UID to uniquely identify the user. And what Firebase actually does is, whenever you create an account with Firebase is going to generate a unique ID for that, maybe email or anything, whatever you use to log in, is going to generate that unique ID for that particular user. So we'll get that and store that for this purpose. And the next is going to be the user email. That's what the user is going to input. And the next is going to be the user phone number. And the next, this should be a string. And the next is going to be the created at, and this will be in milliseconds epoch, and that's why I use the integer. We are going to convert that. And the next is going to be a boolean. Is active. We are going to know if our user is active or not, and we can actually store the user date of birth. I'll call that DOB, date of birth. And what else? We are going to store the created at, and whenever the user maybe update is active, we could create updated at. Whenever that user actually come in and go out, we could update this, so we would know. But the created at is when the user actually create an account, we store that, so we know when a user actually log into or register to our app. And the next is going to be okay, you can just list some on the comment section there, so we could expand the user model. And if we should go through this, we'll know what we are going to be adding. Okay, so this user is going to have a profile picture. So we are going to have a string, let's have it up here, called profile image URL. So we are going to store the user profile picture there. And what else? The user credit card, we are going to do that later. For now, let's keep things really simple. We are going to expand this model. It's going to be a big user model, so let's just generate a data class for this. You can see I've generated this, and if you want to know about the extension I'm using to generate all this, you can actually check on the comment section. I'm going to add the extension type there, so you can easily just install it. And you can see here that we have our constructor all set up, and all the fields here are required. And you see our override from the equatable. We have registered all the properties to make this so we could check the quality of this with other same variables like this. And we have the copy width here that we could use to change the fields here easily using the copy width. And we see the to map from here we can send any data to anywhere to map, and you can also see the from map here. And here you can see that we are going to fetch whatever data from the internet down to our app. So it's going to get a map, and we could decode that to a map and actually use it here. So that's how it's going to be. And I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close this window and move into another model that we are going to create, the results model. And in this result model is going to be responsible for the results we get from our network request. So first we are going to have a network handler, and this is going to extend exceptions. And exception here, let's see, I think this is going to implement it instead. Okay, so we implement that into our app, and we could just go inside this and see what we can override here. We already have the toString, and yeah, so we'll create this, and actually we have not extend, so we'll just extend equatable here to make sure this is. So first, what we'll first do is for us to extend this and implement this. So that's how it's going to be, and we're going to create a final message here. Create the final message here, and we're going to generate a constructor for that, and as well add this message to the list of this for our equatable, so we can use this. So now we are going to go to our repository here and create a new user repository. So the repository is going to be responsible for our network requests and everything that has to be deal with the user database and the user information. So let's go there, and we are going to create a new repository, and here it is, user repository, and we are going to create some few methods in here. The first method is going to be register. So register user. The second is going to be login user. It is going to be get user. Fourth is going to be listen to user. Fifth is going to be listen to user auth. So let's start creating this. So the first we are going to do because this is going to be a feature, and we are going to use the either that, and we are going to import this now. You can see this is it, and this is going to in the other hand. So if we have any errors, we are going to use the error handler, and whenever we register a user, it should return a user. So I'm going to import the user from the user models we just created. So this is all fields, and this is going to be register user, and here we are going to pass all the fields that we need to pass. We'll just pass in the user here, and from the states we could pass in everything we need to pass in, and we'll pass in the user, and as well pass in the password. And we are going to mark this as an async because this is a feature. And the next thing we are going to do is do a try and cache. So the try and cache is going to be responsible for to try when we make a network request, to try that network request, and if it doesn't work and maybe we got an error, the cache block here is going to cache that block, that particular error, and actually will return the error handler. But if this was successful in the try, we are going to return the user. So that's how it's going to be. So if it is error, we are going to return left. So this is right and left and right. So we're going to return left, and we are going to pass in the error handler and as well the message. And this we are going to do to string, and so you can see that. And here we're going to pass in, we're going to do same for this, but this is going to be right, and we're going to pass in the user here, just the user. So let's go with that. First, we're going to, another thing here, we're going to bring in the Auth service we've created on our previous lesson. You're going to see the link below. So we created an authentication service. So here's the authentication service, call it Auth service, and we are going to look for a method in there for sign up, and this method will just allow us to pass in an email and a password. Then we will return a Firebase user. So let's call this Firebase user, and we are going to await this. And the next thing we are going to do is pass in the email, and we pass in our password, and we pass in the password 12. And now if this request goes through, we are going to check this if this is not null. If this is not null, we are going to continue with this. So we're going to create let's create something here. The next thing we're going to create, now we have our Firebase user when the person actually sign up with the email and password. And what we're going to do here is to store the user information in our database. That's what we're going to do. Here we're going to create user collection, and we are going to do Firebase Firestore instance, and we're going to do instance, and here we are going to do collection, and we are going to do users. I'll call this users collection. And here what next we are going to do here is do a doc, and here is the user document. So we are going to save the user ID to this user document, which is from Firebase. Save this, and we are going to set new data. So here, when the user when we actually pass in the user from a different location, we are not going to get the user ID, so we are going to update this. And what we are going to do here is do copy with, and we do new user, and we're going to pass in UID. And here we can now do true map, and we await for this. So if this return success, we are going to return this right here, and if this returns an error, we are going to return message here. We're going to return could not register user, and this is going to be a const. So you are done with the user register user. And the next thing we are going to do, whenever we register a new user, we need to get that user somewhere. We need to store that user so we could use that user in our app. So I'm going to create a new property here, a new variable here called, is going to be a value notifier, and this is going to take a user. And here in this the property, the field is going to be called current user notifier, and it's going to be like this, and I'm going to mark this null. That means this could be null. We could have a null user, that means the user does not exist. So that's what we are going to do. So here we are going to have a setter to this, and that we are going to be using to set this particular value here and variable here. So we are going to have set current user, and here we are going to pass in a user, and this user could be null that we are actually setting, and we are going to do value, and we are going to pass in the user here. So when we do current user notifier dot value, we can see that this is from change notifier here, and we are going to pass in the value we get here, and we are going to do current notifier, and we are going to notify listeners, and we are going to mark this file. I'm going to mark this file that we want to be using this. So that's what we'll be using to notify our listeners, and everywhere in our app, whenever we call this, we will get any change we want to get. So here the next thing here we are going to do is to get our user. So let's create that particular function. So we have created this one. Let's claim that we are creating this one now, and the next is going to be that, and into the future either that, and it's going to take error handler, and as well it's going to return a user. And here we're going to do get current user, and this is going to just, you need to pass in your UID, and we are going to mark this async. It's going to be an asynchronous, and we are going to as well going to make this a try and catch as well, and we are going to return left, and we're going to return error handler, and as well we return the string here, and the message is required. Okay, so we need to pass in a message here as a name argument here. And the next thing we are going to do here is to Firebase snapshots, and we are going to do Firebase users collection, and we're going to do doc, and after we do doc, and we're going to pass in the UID and do get. So we are going to await for this, and here what else we are going to do is for us to check if this exists, and if yes, we are going to do every logic here, and if that does not exist, we are going to throw the left side of this, and we are going to say user does not exist. And if the user actually exists, we are going to get the user. So we call this get the data of this user. That's going to be from the user snapshot, and we get the data, and when we get the data, we create a new user, and this is going to be called user, and user we are going to call from map, because the data here is map string dynamic, which contain every data of that user we actually save here from the to map, and the user, the email, and everything is going to contain all of that. So we are going to deserialize it using the from map, deserialize it to a usable user variable. So we are going to use this data here. I'm going to pass it here, and this is going to be as, we're going to cast this as a map of string dynamic, so we could use it here, and as soon as we get and use the the user here, and we are going to set that user to the current user notifier. We are going to set current user. We're going to set it to this, and as soon as we set that, we return right, and the right is going to be the user, or we could pass in, let's pass in the user. So I've gotten that. So we are going to use this here. As soon as we register the user, we're going to get the user. So we are going to get the user. So let's use the Firebase. This is the UID here. So the next is going to be, let's log in the user. So we'll do future either, and we're going to do error handler, and we are also going to do, when we log in a user, we want to retrieve that user as well, and we'll do login. So we'll just do login, and in this login, all we'll just need is the UID, and we'll need the UID. Okay, not the UID, we don't need the user UID, sorry. We just need the user email, and we also need the user password. And this we are going to mark an asynchronous, and here we are going to do the same thing, which is try and cache, and else we're going to return this. And if that doesn't work out, we are going to try to log in the user and actually receive that user. So I'm going to use this code here. I'm going to change it from sign up to log in, and here we are going to retrieve the Firebase user. So almost everything we did here, we're going to do the same. Just bring all of this here, but we are not going to set any user. We're just going to retrieve the user. Going to just retrieve the user. So this will be user. Okay, this will be get current. So that's what it's going to be. Here we'll say could not log in user, and here get current user data, let's call it that way. And we're going to check if this is right. That means it was successful. That means this right, which is user, we are going to return this dot right. That means the right actually contains the user, and else we are going to return the left. So we're going to return left, and that's all for that. And next here is to listen to user. So I'm going to clean up that, and we are going to do that. So this is going to be a stream and of user, and this user could be null, and we're going to do listen to current user, and here we're going to pass in a UID to listen to that document, because Firebase actually has that functionality to listen to a single document whenever that document actually changes. This particular code we are going to write now will get triggered, and we can update the user variable up here. This current user, we can update that immediately, and everywhere in our app is going to change. Maybe a user might want to change his name, and whenever I update that, maybe in the edit profile screen, and it comes back to maybe the profile, you can see the changes in seconds. So that's what this is going to do. And here we're going to do it, wrap it in a try and cache, and in the try and cache here, we're going to do a sync hash. This is for stream, this is for stream. You can see we've been doing just a sync, but this is going to be a sync hash because this is a stream, not a future. So the next thing we are going to do here is actually creating a snapshot, And in this snapshot, we're going to do users collection, and we're going to get going to add the document, which is the UID, and we're going to listen to the snapshots. Now we get the snapshot. You can see that this notify and updates whenever this user document changes. This will always be called. We call this snapshot, and we are going to listen to this. So now we are going to create one more thing. So this is actually a stream subscription, and we don't want to keep our streams just open like that all over the app. We need somehow to actually dispose those streams and maybe close it whenever we want to. Maybe the user wants to log out, we just dispose the string up and close it. So we are going to create something called user stream subscription. That's what we are going to call it. And this, we don't want this to be accessible outside, and we are going to create that field. It's going to be a private field, and we have created that, so whenever we listen to this, it's added to here. And when we want to start listening to this, we need to cancel this and as well mark it as null. So whenever we recall this particular function, we cancel it and call it as and reinitialize it. So that's how we are going to do it. And if this actually do anything, we are going to print. We should not use a print here. Let's actually create something for our print, because the print is going to give us some warning. So let's go to our utils and create something called common. And in our common folder, our common file here, we're going to create something called folder print. And here we are going to pass in a dynamic value, and here we are going to pass in debug print. So this is the right one for your app. So whenever you run your app on production, you're not going to be still getting the print statements on your console, and that can be dangerous if you do that just using print everywhere. So this is what we are going to do, and this is going to be a void, and we're going to use folder print, and we print the whatever thing here, so we note what is happening. And here in the event, which is the document, let's just call it document. Document. And here we call this document. We want to be listening to any changes from here, and in the document we need to check if that document actually exists or not. And if it exists, we are going to get the data of that document. The data is actually what is the key value pair, and we are going to, this is map string dynamic, and here we are going to set we're going to create a user from the user model. This is from JSON, and we're going to pass in data, and here we're going to cast this as map dynamic, and here we're going to set the current user. So whenever we listen to current user, so where do we call this? We call this on our get current user, so we call it here. So when we get the user, we as well start listening to the user. So that's what is going to happen. And the next is listen to Auth. So you're going to write a code for that. This is going to be a private code. We don't need to expose this one. So this one will be listen to Auth changes, and we are going to call, let's just take this one a little bit upper, and we're going to create this constructor and call that here. So in our auth service, we add something we call auth state, and in our auth state here we need to listen to our auth state. And one more thing I didn't do is for us to return in our listen to current user, we need to return the current that we need to yield. We need to yield it, sorry. We need to yield the current user notifier and the value. Okay, so we are going to listen to this, and this is also a subscription, and we are going to call this auth stream subscription. That's what we are going to call it, and we are going to create this now field, and we are going to remove this. Don't want to expose that. We're going to remove the auth here. We don't want the Firebase auth here. And in here we are going to get the Firebase user, and whenever we get the Firebase user, we can now check if this user is not null, and if this user is not null, we get the user ID. This is going to be a string UID, and get the UID and get current user pass in. So if this, when this repository is initialized, we just listen to the auth here, and when we listen to this, we actually get the user ID and get the current user. Else we are going to print the footer print no current user, and we are going to do here too current user, and we are going to expose this UID on our terminal, on our debug console. Sorry, this is going to be a void. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to cancel this at first, and as well mark this as null. So that's what we're going to do. And the next thing is for us to actually register this to our GetIt. So here in our services, we need to create a GetIt service. So this is going to be our GetIt service, and here in our GetIt service is going to be a class called GetIt, and in this class we're going to call it GetIt service, sorry. And in this class we are going to have a static called initialize, and this is going to be initialize service, and here we are going to have a static variable called GetIt, and okay, so let's call GetIt. So we do GetIt instance, and we mark this as final, and so mark that as final. We are going to register our user repository here. So we do GetIt and register singleton. We are going to register our singleton here. It's going to be user repository, and we are going to give it a type as well here, user repository. And we are going to create one more thing here called locate. So this locate is going to be responsible if you pass in the type of locate, and it's going to return the type of GetIt you actually want. So if you do, maybe you do locate, you want to locate user repository, and you have you already have this initialized, you can use this anywhere in your code and it works fine. So as we have done this here, we need to register it, and you guess it right, we need to register this when our app starts. That's where we're going to register this. So when our app starts, we want to register this, and we're going to import that part and initialize service this, and we're going to rerun our code to harvest everything in sync. And I'm going to do a new commit here. We have done a lot of changes. Do it added user repository, added user model and user repository. So save that. Yes, you can get all the code. So the next thing we are going to do is for us to actually connect all of this. And yeah, we'll go to the UI now. Go to the UI, and you can see the UI is this is the UI, everything we have in the UI. So I'm going to create some pages for the authentication here, so we could extract some things and move it to that particular folder. We'll call it pages, and we have some pages here. We have the first page, sign up. From the pages, and immediately we are going to commit this. Yeah, the goal is to have a lot of commits. So we just called refactor auth screen and go back, and yeah, so we have everything clean on the auth screen. We have our pages, and we can as well have maybe a component. Maybe we want to do something for just this particular screen. We don't want any other screen to have that component. We can save this on this component. So the next thing we are going to do, we are going to check and see how we can connect all of this to this UI. And let's go to our sign up view. So we want to connect our text field and everything, but before doing that, we need a state. So we could control the entire state of our authentication. So we need a state. This state is going to be a global state that actually we can use it anywhere. So we're going to call that auth state. So call it authentication state here. Call it authentication state, and this authentication state is going to, I'll just close this and call it authentication state, and here is going to extend base state. Now I'm going to create a new state called base state in our component here. This is going to be called base state. So we are going to have something here in this base state that we will be needing in every other state. So it is not going to be an independent state. It's a state that in every state we created, we will always extend this. So let's do that. Call this base state and extend the change notifier here. And in this change notifier, we are going to have a boolean called is loading, and yeah, and this is going to be set to false. And here we are going to have a setter. I'm going to have a set a method instead, set loading. And here we are going to have a boolean, and here is going to be a value, and is loading. We're going to set it to the value, and we call notify listeners. So that's how we are going to do it, and that's why we have the base state. So we are going to get the base state, and on this UI you can see what are the things we actually want. You want the text field for maybe want to sign up. We need all this, and we need method that maybe when we click on this we will be able to register a user and move into the next screen. So those are the things we want, and we are going to create these things, and we are going to create a text editing controller. And this is going to be name controller, and this name controller we are going to still have the text editing controller, and this is going to be 3, and we have the email, and we also have the password, and we have gotten all of that. And the next thing here is for us to get the user repo, and here we use the locate and locate our user repository. And so whenever we use this locate now, as soon as we call this is being registered. It has been registered already, so we can call this anywhere, and this user repository would never be created again, because it has been registered and get it as a singleton. That means a single class that can never get duplicated. So the next is what we are going to do. We should have a global key. Let's have a global key. So this is a form. We need to validate this form before doing anything. Let's get a form key, and we're going to call this global key, and call this a type of form key, form state, sorry. And here we're going to have first we're going to have register. This is going to be just a void method, void, and it's going to be called register user. And here we're going to have our first validate. So we are going to get the form key and get the current state and actually get validate. This could be no, and we are going to check if this is not null and is equals to true. Let's continue. So we are going to create a new user here, and we have everything new here. Okay, we have created our new user. We need to pass in all these fields. So we don't have the UID of this user currently, so it's going to be an empty string, and we don't have, okay, we have the email, sorry, we just get it from the email controller, and this is how to get it. You do email controller.text, and the phone number, you would not get the phone number on the screen, so we'll leave it empty, and even the profile picture will not get it. And the created ads, yes, we'll get this one, but we need to create this outside. This is going to return an integer, and this is going to be timestamp now. Okay, we'll just call it time now. So whenever we call this anywhere, it's going to return the time now in a milliseconds epoch. So this is a milliseconds epoch. That's what we are going to return it as. So just take this method, this function to our utils in our command. We paste it here, and here we can do time now, and we can add this as well. Here is active. We just set this to true because when the user actually register, the user is active. And the DOP, we can just set that to 0 because we don't know. And the next is going to be register user, register, and we're going to call user repository, and we're going to register user, and the password we're going to pass it here. We're going to do text.trim, yeah, and we're going to await for this. Before we await for this, we need to mark this as an async, and we need to check this if this is right. If this is right, we have gotten our user. We can actually print further print here, and in here we could say successfully registered a user, and else we can just throw an error. We can just throw the error that was, so it's going to be left error, call it error. So that's it for that. And so let's see the register user, and let's do the same for let's do the same. Okay, we'll do login user, and we don't need to validate this, or we can just validate just the email, and we don't need to create this. We just need to log in, and we could just pass in the email controller.text.trim to remove the spaces. Successfully log in user, and here we can have a current user here. Can have a current user, and this could be no. And here we'll just use this on our, we use our constructor here, and what we are going to do on our constructor, we are going to listen to our current user notifier, and here we are going to add listener to that, and here as well we are going to notify, call this user notifier, and we're going to create that method, and we're going to also do this on our dispose. So when the state is disposed, we'll just use and as well remove the listener too. And if the current user is null, we can just try to do this, initialize this, or call this function. So in this, we are going to do current user, and we are going to go into our user repo and get the current user. And what we are going to do here, we are going to notify listeners. So that's what we are going to do. And so if this, we need to create our home, so we are going to navigate to that home. So we need to create a home. Let's call this let's call it overview instead. In our overview, we are going to call a screen. We're going to call this, and this is going to be a stateless widget called overview, sorry. And we're going to import material, and here in our overview we're going to have app scaffold, and this scaffold always comes with a body, and here in the body we're going to have a container instead of any other thing. So, and we'll need to register this on our navigation. We'll go to our services, go to our navigation, and we go to our path. So our name route, we're going to register this and call it overview. So do well to check out the previous video so you'll be able to understand all of this I'm doing, and because that is very important for you to check. And here we are going to remove this. We don't need the default, else we just return null. If none of this works, we just need return null. And the next is going to be here is going to be the overview part, and here we are going to return the overview. Yeah, and so what we'll need now is to have our context and as well register the authentication. So we need to create this authentication. So we are going to create it on the app here itself. So we have the wrapper here, and we want to create it above our material app here. So do center and the changes to change notifier. Let's change it to multi-provider so we could register other providers, or as we call it, change notifiers. Okay, so we're going to create this. This is going to, we don't need the context here, and we just need to create this and just import. So here we will need a build context here, but we're going to get that from so this is going to be a getter, and we're going to get that from navigation service. So just call this navigation service, and here in our navigation service we'll get the instance, and we can call it anytime, anywhere we want to. And here we can get the current context and make sure. So we've gotten our context now, so we can use it at any time we want to use it. And what else? So when the user is successful, we want to navigate this user to the overview. We run this. So we are going to go to the sign up, and here we can just have our state. And we'll just do context dot wash. So what this is going to be is going to always wash the authentication states. Just need this. We're going to import the provider, and we are going to assign all of this. So in our folder text field, we'll need a controller. We need a controller, so call this text editing controller. And here we're going to add that controller. We add it to the constructor as well. And we can now have this, and we just have we have the name controller. Okay, this is a const to remove all the password and remove the const. And here in the sign up, we will just have a state and say register user. That's how we're going to do it. And here we'll just do a tear off. Here we need to go to the authentication view, and at this point we need to have something here. We need to have form, and in the key here we need to do context.read. We're going to import that from the provider, and this is going to be from the authentication state, and we are going to get the form key. We're going to restart this again. So let's add one more thing before we forget. So the thing is going to be the is loading feature. So let's add that here. When we request to register our user, we would need to set loading. We'll set it to true, and when this is done, we'll set it to false. And here first we are going to also check if is loading is equals to false, and before we can continue with that, we'll do the same for login, and we set this to false. We are going to also check if is loading is equals to false, and in the UI we can just do a quick thing. We go to the sign up view, and in the sign up view we can just, on our button here where we have our button state, and where we have the state, we can just do if state is loading, we just show loading, else we show ideal. That's what we are going to do, and I'll restart this and go back. You can see we have no current user, and when we go back and let's see, go back and we enter a name, Paul Edemekong, and we have our test Gmail, have it, and we have our email. So this is our email. We have that loading, and the email is already used by another account, so we can just use a different thing. 1 2 3, we click and we wait, and we are in the new overview screen, and we can just go to our database. Here you can see that new user created, the created time, the email that we entered, the everything, the UID, everything is all. And also on the and also on the authentication here you can also see something like that. So on our next video we are going to tie this also to the login, and we are going to move into the main screen. So on this particular tutorial we are done with the user repository, and anything that comes in there is going to be some added features to make the user. But now we have set up our user repository, and if you're not a subscriber to the channel, I would like you for your full support to support this channel by subscribing and also sharing this video. All right, thank you so much, and God bless you.